Hey guys, Tarke here, and it is my turn to go through the Ascendant class changes. I'm going to briefly go through each of the individual changes, but this is mostly going to be me talking about my thoughts on the change. Is this the change that the Ascendant really needed and or deserved after what seems like a year or rather? But let's just start off by going through. So let's zoom in a little bit to make it a bit clearer for you guys. Let's go one more. There we go. That should be good. So they've completely gone through it and just reworked everything, and this will be coming through and we'll have something to test on the beta. One important thing to note is while it's largely the passive changing, the path of, so basically the final routing, which lets you jump to a start, will also grant 2 additional skill points. Something which a lot of people don't seem to be mentioning, so Scion will get an extra 2 skill points. In some cases that will be meaningful, but most people are just focusing on the little subclass changes. So let's go through them. So Elementalist now reads as 50% reduced reflect any damage taken. Obviously pretty powerful. However, remember Reflect is being reworked. We don't know how Reflect is going to be reworked. So this might be great in the current state. This is very powerful. However, in future PoE with a change Reflect, knowing there will be the Pantheon system, we know Pantheon will have some way of handling Reflect, that might not actually be as great as it seems on paper. Damage Pen, 6% Elemental Pen will always be powerful. Gain Elemental Conflux. This is full Conflux, so when this is open, you will always shock, chill, ignite everything for 6 seconds when you kill a rare or unique enemy. Insert this onto a clear speed build, be it Fork Chain Tornado Shot, be it Val Fireball, Val Spark, whatever. You can easily keep 100% uptime on this on like a Stratton kind of layout. This means that you can go slightly weaker damage investment going in. With this always active, you make up for it. Very powerful. It was already very powerful before at 4 seconds. It's now 6 seconds. It's just easier to keep up. The one that I'm particularly interested in is can summon up to 1 additional golem at a time. Currently, the only real golem answers you're seeing are either Necromancer or Elementalist. This potentially opens you up to something else. Pretty cool. Necromancer, 20% increased skill effect duration. You and your minions have 4% physical damage reduction. You and your allies deal 30% increased damage while affected by auras you cast. You and your allies affected by auras have 20% chaos resistance. Meaningful. Skill effect duration is very powerful. Obviously, flat phase reduction is nice. You and your allies, that's you, your minions, you, anyone you're in a party with who's in your aura range, getting the increased damage, getting the extra chaos res. Very nice. Seeing that more builds will be life focused, that little bit of extra chaos res is actually quite meaningful. Occultist, 20% increased maximum energy shield, 1% of any shield recharge per second. Enemies you curse have minus 15% to chaos res. 20% increased damage if you've killed a cursed enemy recently. Occultist was already strong. Even if you don't see any ES builds, which trust me there will be, but let's pretend that ES got removed from the game. Having that penetration for chaos-based builds is very nice. And depending on the state of chaos going forward, this might become even more powerful or even more necessary to make up for lost damage with the changes to double dipping. So all in all 3 of those usable. Right, Assassin now has a 1.5 to critical strike chance. A lot of people seem to be glossing over that. It was originally just 1%. Having a 50% increase to your base crit when it comes to going from 1% to 1.5. Very powerful. That is really nice. 40% multi against enemies that are on full life. 20% chance of getting a power charge on hit against enemies that are on full life. That used to be 10%. In a solo party situation, you can very easily maintain power charges. That very nice. Single target, so we're a little bit awkward. You know, you do an orb of storms with a power charge on crit or something, but that's still very nice. Critical strikes, which maim on attacks. Cool. Assassin, very usable. Was already usable, even better now. Saboteur. Right, this is the one that everyone is upset about. 20% chance to create a smoke cloud when you place a mine or throw a trap. Don't know if it'd be on your location or the trap and or mine's location. In the case of mine, that'll always be on your location because you drop mine at your feet. 5% increased damage for each trap and mine you have. 10% increased movement speed if you placed a mine or thrown a trap recently. They've been adding a lot of just like rando 10% movement speed into a few of these options. Maybe that could be meaningful, maybe not. It's better than nothing. And movement speed is always nice. Traps and mines which have been armed for 4 seconds deal 50% increased damage. A lot of people are saying that Saboteur's been nerfed because they've removed the trap cooldown recovery. We don't know, there might be reworks of traps, they might get more charges, they might get faster recharge, we don't know. It seems like this is weaker than before, although at least movement speed is something. You'd probably never really take this. Trickster. 50% increased recovery rate of life, mana, and eddy shield if you've killed an enemy affected by your damage over time recently. Very powerful, very good. For recovery-based builds, this is very nice, and it is actually very noticeable. It's a difference with builds not needing to invest into their mana sustain at all, or whatever. Very nice. 20% more chance of evade while on full energy shield. Good. 20% increased damage while not on full energy shield. Decent. 15 mana regen per second if you used a movement skill recently. Very powerful. Flat mana regen is always nice to come by. This is like a pretty good clarity. Whenever you use a movement skill, most builds always found movement skills. Really nice. Like, this is actually really nice. And again, another one which I don't think people are really talking about. If we had old school Arctic armor, that would be amazing. Currently, there aren't too many mechanics which reward this kind of playstyle, but Mom, I think, will be quite popular. Maybe, if paired with something else, it could become a build. So out of those, 2 out of 3 are usable. Right. Ranger, the perfect one. Raider, 10% increased movement speed on the bat. Boom. 4% chance to dodge attacks. You have Onslaught while on full frenzies. 10% chance to gain a frenzy charge when you hit a rare or unique enemy. The people saying that the change to that being on hit rather than on kill is a nerf, you are wrong. This is much better being on hit. You want your frenzy staying on single target. That is when it really matters. Most builds will be able to maintain this all the way through your map clear anyway. If you have this plus any other kind of frenzy gen, they're nice. You will always have frenzies. Good. Always having onslaught on bosses because you'll always have your friends on bosses. Good. Pathfinder. 10% increased movement speed. Why? Okay. 50% chance to gain a flash charge when you deal a critical strike. Pretty powerful for some builds, because most builds go with a bunch of unique slots. Having like a mini surgeon, just occasionally adding the odd charge here and there, even though surgeon isn't as powerful as it once was. Very, very nice. 30% increased damage while using a flask. It's just generic damage. It will apply to everything. Note, it won't double dip because that'll be gone when that comes through, but very nice. And the 10% chance of your flask not to consume charges. It's a nice bit of extra fluff. It really isn't needed. Anyone who plays Pathfinder, because I'm sure no one's played Pathfinder before, when you have that node where there's the chance, you actually notice it a lot. Now, this is a lower chance. It's still nice. Pathfinder, you would definitely take. Pathfinder was takeable before, but it, on paper, was very boring, so not many people really looked at it. Deadeye. 30% chance of projectiles piercing, still 30%. 30% increased projectile speed. Having the projectile speed back on Deadeye is very impactful for some builds. Most of the projectile speed builds don't really need it anymore. Like Spark was the main one, but Spark doesn't really need the project speed anymore. However, it is nice for pre-existing skills and any skills which might come out in the future. Very large potential. Projectiles gain damage as they travel further, dealing up to 50%. This used to be 30%. Pretty substantial. Skills fire an additional projectile. Good. All 3 of these are usable. Very powerful. All 3 of these were previously very powerful. This is solid. Right. Slayer. 50% reduced reflect fizz taken. Again, see previous comment about Elementalist. Currently amazing. In the future, maybe not as much. Still very powerful mod. 40% increased damage against rare and or unique enemies. Very solid. Life leech effects are not removed at full life. Huge. Your damaging hits always stun enemies that are on full life. Huge. People don't mention that. That's actually really nice. It's good. You one-shot most things, but things you don't one-shot, get a little mini stun. Gives you a bit of breathing room. On a bow build, that's kind of nice. It's just, yeah, it's good. It gives you just a little bit of extra gaps and everything. I've played stun builds before. Stun is a good mechanic. Slayer, yeah. Good. Gladiator. Nerfed, I think. 4% additional block chance. Attacks have 20% chance to cause bleeding. Bleeding might become a better mechanic. Bleeding's getting a lot of support. Could be something. Right now seems a bit underwhelming. But remember, this could be something. 3% increased movement speed for each hit you've blocked recently. Potentially amazing. Potentially. But not worth picking. If that makes sense. You wouldn't pick it just for that, but potentially very powerful. 30% increased damage if you've killed a bleeding enemy recently. nice, but considering how many other Ascendancies just get like their like damage thing kind of for free, it's nearly always there. Considering it's only 30%, if you've done something recently, you won't always have a single target. I feel like since this is very situational, compare this to like the Slayer, where it's 40%, which will always be active against res uniques when you need the extra damage. I feel like the 30% is a random number. A lot of the numbers through these seem very random. Why 30% for that and yet 40% for this? This is much harder to maintain than this. This is always there when you need it. This won't always be there. This is a lower number. Why? Champion. 2% chance to fortify on melee hits, not on all hits. If it was on all hits, then that would be something really worth talking about, but whatever. 20% chance to taunt on hits. You and nearby allies have 30% increased damage while you have fortify, 5% reduced damage taken from taunted enemies. And if you ever play in party play, if you taunt an enemy, there's the whole thing of like they do less damage to your teammates, etc., etc. Pretty much the reason why you go champion is to get fortify on builds which can't normally get fortify. The Ascendant champion doesn't really help you with that. There are more powerful options. Both the Gladiator and the Slayer are far more appealing. You would never realistically pick this. 1, maybe 2, but basically 1 out of 3 are usable. You could caveat maybe do a Gladiator comboed with Guardian for some block shenanigans, but if you are really chasing that much block, you could get more block doing either a Guardian or just a Gladiator, so... well. Chieftain, 50% chance to ignite, 30% increased damage while you have a totem, regenerate 2% of your maximum life per second while you have a totem, gain 15% of fizz as extra fire damage if your totems killed recently. It's fine, some totem builds will want it, it's pretty boring. Jug, 30% increased armor, who cares? Cannot be chilled, feels good. 2% chance to gain endurance charge when you're hit. You cannot be stunned while at maximum endurance charges. I would argue that Gladiator is a fairly defensive ascendancy, yet it gets damage. Champion is like a defensive ascendancy, but arguably gets less defense than other ascendancies, but doesn't get any damage at all, or any like cool utility. Juggernaut is... I don't understand how some of these are balanced, but sure, whatever. Berserker, 5% increased damage taken, 10% more damage, 1% of damage leeches life if you've killed recently, 20% increased attack cast, and movement speed if you've taken a savage hit recently. Thing which annoys me about this, Berserker, the reason why Berserker used to be good was it used to give life and mana leech, if I remember correctly, or at least it used to give a lot more life leech. If this gave life and mana leech with the current values, so just 1% if you've killed recently, I would really be interested in Ascendant. Currently, not that interested. Berserker used to be amazing. If they added mana leech on, that would be huge. The 20% increased attack casting speed if you've taken a big hit recently is nice. 10% more damage is nice. 5% increased damage taken, not so much. Maybe, but annoying. Hyro, skill in your helms can have up to 1 additional totem summoned at a time. 25% increased maximum mana, gain 10% of your maximum mana as extra maximum energy shield, 50% chance to gain a power charge when you place totem. Powerful. It's currently used, this will keep seeing use. It's good. Guardian. I'm really interested in this. People keep going, really? Why? But I think this is kind of cool. 25% reduced effect of curse on you. You and nearby party members share power, frenzy, endurance charges. Good for people who do co-op play. You and allies affected by your auras have 5% additional block chance. Being able to give block chance to other things seems really powerful to me. It requires a lot of coordination, but being able to give block chance to allies seems amazing. You and your allies have 10% increased attack, cast, and movement speed. Seems decent. Not insane, but it seems decent. So if you had some coordinated play and you wanted, for example, you really wanted like Elementus or you really wanted Slayer and you didn't know what other like random ascendancy to go for, you could take Guardian, and because both you and your party members have Conjurer, if you're playing with a Raider, for example, then they would be giving you your frenzies, meaning you wouldn't need to go Raider yourself. I feel like if other things became powerful, and like me, you do a lot of duo play, this might be like a decent second pick. Maybe. For hardcore, I think it's decent. In Quiz, 25% increased LE damage taken. Take 8% reduced LE damage while on consecrated ground. 120% increased critical strike chance against 80% by elements of status. 50% chance to create consecrated ground on kill, last 8 seconds. 2 are usable out of this, definitely. Maybe Guardian, maybe Inquiz, but yes. So you go, well, Tarke, it seems like at least one of all of these is kind of like okay, except for maybe Marauder, where it's just like, nah, maybe, but nah. So what's like your verdict on it? Personally, I'm pretty disappointed. I feel like going through them, while there are some potentially powerful options in there, this doesn't seem like a year's worth of design. This doesn't seem like this was the fix that they came to after many a board meeting. Memes have been going around about like, oh, well, if you're going to do something, then do it properly, don't half-arse it, etc., etc. This doesn't really fix a lot of the issues that Scion had. So if you look at Scion, it has a few like major flaws. The big flaw with Scion from my point of view, and I was hoping there were going to be changes to Ascendancy, and I was like, oh, maybe if they change Ascendancy, then suddenly Scion makes sense. Maybe they'll reduce the amount of labs or whatever. Currently, if you make a Scion, new, cool, select. You are a Scion, you are an Ascendant. You do your first lab, 2 points. You get some stats and a passive point. Not very interesting. You then do your next Ascendancy. Haha! Got my thing. Cool. I got some strength. And then you do next thing. Haha! Sick. And then you do your Uber lab, and then you get your jump. Okay. So your first lab feels terrible because you don't get anything. That's bad. There must be a more elegant way of doing that. By Merc, it's fine, but the Uber lab is a big issue. So the whole thing with Scion starts in the middle of the tree, so Scion has the best access to the entire tree. Considering it has the best access to the entire tree, being able to jump to another start isn't as amazing as it would seem. There are some niche builds where it's very nice and can potentially save you a lot of points. In most cases, it really isn't that impactful. In the cases where it does save you a lot of points, what do you do when you're leveling? Do you go into your Uber lab with like 10 points not spent because you don't want to drop a bunch of regrets? Or do you go into your Uber lab and then have to drop like 10, 15 regrets? Now, in a case where Scion is particularly powerful, having this slight annoying opportunity cost is fine, but it's not elegant game design. It's not fluid in any sense. There's nothing really kind of like feels good, man, about it. I'm not entirely sure how they'd go about fixing that, but it just feels kind of awkward. Another thing kind of worth mentioning is we've established that all of Ranger is really nice, but I can't be a Raider Pathfinder. I can only be one. Meaning that a lot of potential options which have nice little cross synergy in between it, you can't take, which is rather irritating. Also, if I am, for example, a Pathfinder Assassin, as a lot of people are hype about, where do I jump to? You either completely ignore, like, Scion's start and jump straight to there, or you do something kind of like this, where you do, like, this, pick up some life, and then you jump over to Ranger. Now, let's say that you're a bow build, for example. You're probably going to want to travel into Duelist anyway, and you're now saving suddenly 1, 2, 3, 4 points. You're probably going to take this 2-point duel. You're now saving 3 points, but you're then spending points into Scion's start. Yes, you are now getting 2 additional skill points, but it's awkward, you understand? And also, a lot of like the synergies that you're going to see a lot of people want to like Slayer plus something from Ranger, Slayer plus something from Shadow. If you're let's say you're a crit-based Sunder build, or Varanastra, or whatever, right? So you're an attack-based, crit-based sword thing, and you're probably going to be in this part of the tree anyway. You're already in the part of the tree you want to skip to. The case where the skip is really nice would be like, if you were doing some crit elemental stuff, you could be all in this part of the tree, but then suddenly jump over to Templar start, right? So imagine you had your entire tree here, but then you could jump over here. That's suddenly very powerful. But for a attack elemental based thing, Inquisitor isn't actually that good. Like, you'd rather be an Elementalist, you'd rather be one of the Pathfinder options, you'd rather be an Assassin, you'd rather be a Slayer for the Leech thing. Like, there are some things which you would rather be than going Inquis for the sake of having one slightly optimal-looking tree. That all being said, I will see Scion's next patch. Or, like, if Hand of Wisdom Action still exists, if Sprinklers still exist, Whispering Ice, getting access to all of these raw extra int nodes, potentially very powerful. Not really very elegant, not really what we were all hoping for, and just one thing, GGG. When you wake up in the morning, like I woke up this morning, the first thing I do is check Reddit, because I'm a sad human being, and I see the Ascendant class changes. My entire body gets hype. And then I read, and I'm like, it's slightly better than before. Bastards. It's like anyone who was hype about the lab changes, you're like, oh, lab manifesto, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. We've removed 6 trials. Fuck. TLDR, there are some improvements here. You'll probably still see some sounds, probably more sounds in the future. I would expect some of the other Ascendancies to get some tweaks, so take this into account. We can't really evaluate this until we see future changes. They might be nerfing other Ascendancies. If they happen to be nerfing a bunch of other Ascendancies, maybe this is way more powerful. If they happen to be buffing up a bunch of other ones, maybe this feels shit again. It's annoying seeing things in a snippet. Keep in mind you need to see everything before you can give a full, big picture. So yeah, kind of good, kind of disappointing, but it's something. I'm Tarke. Have a good day. Fix her fucking portrait, please. Bye-bye.